welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now today on screen we have one of Sam Cappleman-Lynes' recent puzzles from his Uncertainty series, and we had a Twitter poll, actually it was a YouTube poll, to see which of those puzzles you'd like us to do, and Mark covered the arrow puzzle the other day. But I happen to know this puzzle is Sam's favourite of the bunch, so I've decided I'm going to attempt it. Now, I'm doing this with some trepidation because Sam described this in an email to me as an absolute monster, which is a little bit worrying given that Sam's puzzles are often not the easiest at the best of times. But anyway, we're going to have a go, and in a moment I will explain the rules. Firstly though, I'd like to mention again our puzzle hunts, our junior puzzle hunt and our adult puzzle hunt. The junior puzzle hunt has been getting amazing feedback. It's been tweeted across the Twitter sphere many hundreds of times, and it's definitely worth checking out. It seems that we may have slightly overestimated the age range that it's suitable for. We've had reports of children as young as 8 enjoying it, so I think it'll definitely, if you know anybody of that age who might be interested in puzzles, then do point them in the direction of the puzzle hunt. I'll put a link under the video. It's free, and yeah, it's an amusing thing to do in these days of self-isolation. As for the adult puzzle hunt, I have interesting news there too, in a way. Nobody has solved that yet. So those of you out there, and I know there are many who watch the channel who are familiar with the MIT Mystery Hunt or Galactic Puzzle Hunt, yeah, you should definitely be applying your thinking caps, and I look forward to getting the first correct answer to Neil's puzzle. Again, link under the video. Right, let's talk about this puzzle. You can see there are no givens in the grid and some numbers outside the grid. Now, what we are told about each of these numbers outside the grid is that they are of one of two types. They are either a frame Sudoku clue, which means, let's look at this 23. A frame Sudoku clue would indicate these 3 squares, the first 3 squares in the row, have to add up to 23. So if this 20 was a frame Sudoku clue, it would mean those 3 squares, the first 3 squares in the column, have to sum up to 20. Now, that's possibility 1. Possibility 2 is that these clues are X-sums clues. Now, X-sums clues are rather more tricky. In an X-sums clue, you need to look at the first digit in the row in this instance. Let's say this was a 5. This 5 would tell you that the 23 sum had to be made up of the first 5 cells in the row. So if this was 7, it would mean that the first 7 cells in the row had to sum up to 23, and obviously it works in the same way in the column. You know, if this was a 3, well, 3 is a bad example because 3 is the same length as a frame Sudoku. Let's say it was a 4, that would indicate that those 4 clues there would have to sum up to 20. That's all we know, and yeah, this. So I was typing into the software. I was trying to work out in my brain how I was even going to start this puzzle. I haven't got any good ideas yet, so I'm going to start in a moment. If you want to have a go, click on the link under the video. Allow yourself some time, and you can play along as well. Now let's get cracking. How would we do this? Now, one of the things that's daunting about this immediately is that normally in an X-sums or a frame Sudoku, you're only dealing with one set of rules, and there are sort of some gimme clues that you can hone in on. You know, if this was frame Sudoku only, this 24 would be instantly fillable as 7, 8, 9, but here that isn't going to work. One thing I am tempted to do is to think about where 1s, 2s and 3s can go. Why do I say that? Well, it's because, let me just pick the right row or column to look at this. I think this column might be the best place to start. Where can 1, 2 and 3 go in this column? Now, we obviously can't put them in any I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but we can't put a 1, 2 or a 3 in any of those squares, because whether these are frame clues or whether these are X sums clues, a 3, for example, here would mean we can't make these 3 squares add up to 21. It's impossible. So whether it's a frame clue or whether this is an X sum clue indicating a length of 3, we just can't get high enough. So we can conclude from that that the 1s, 2s and 3s are in those squares. Now, can we go any further? Especially, can I limit the position of the 4? Because if I can limit the 4 to these 4 places as well, we'd have a quadruple in the column. So is there anything preventing these 3 squares from being 4s? I don't think there is. I think it's absolutely possible that all of these could be 4s. Okay, that's not... I don't think that's how we're meant to start. Oh, I just realised my microphone is a bit far away. I'm going to move it closer. There we are. Well, okay. This column, look, I've got a 23 clue and a 21 clue. Now that adds up to 44. Now we know that the total sum for this column will be 45 because that's what we get when we add the numbers from 1 to 9. So we know in this column that there's a 1 sort of separating however long this clue is, whether it's a 3, a 4, 5, 6, there's got to be a 1 after it, and then this clue will come into effect. But these two totals, the 21 and the 23 total, you can't make them in less than 3 squares. So they must at least be taking up those yellow squares there. So there must be a 1 in one of those squares. And the 20 clue, we can't put a 1 here, because otherwise whichever clue type this is will break. So there's a 1 in one of 2 positions. Maybe this is what we have to do. So let's have a look at other... Yes, look, column 7 here, we've got a 20 clue and a 23 clue. So again, we now know there's a 2 on its own somewhere separating these 2 clues on the perimeter. Again, 20 and 23 have to be at least 3 squares, so we get a 2 in one of those squares. 20 and 22, that adds up to 42. That's a bit more difficult because that could be a single 3 separating the clues or a 1 and a 2 separating the clues. I'm not sure about that one. I'm not really sure how to notate it. These two add up to 45, so there's no separation between these 2 clues. And same is true of column 1. Not sure. Let's have a look at the rows. So 21 and 22, that's 43. So again, we've got a 2 in one of these squares. This can't be a 2 because of the 22 clue. A 1 in one of these squares. These add up to 44. These add up to 41. So again, we've got a 4 in there, or a 1 and a 3. We don't yet know which. 45, 45. So we know there's a 1 in one of these 3 positions in this box down here, and a 2 in one of these positions. I'm not seeing how to use that either. Running out of ideas here. I think we'd probably have to think about rows and columns that add up to 45. Yeah, look at, we've got symmetry there between those two clues. So I guess, yeah, there's something, there's a thought. Any row or column that adds up to 45, if the two clues add up to 45, then either both clues must be X sums clues, or one of them must be an X sums clue. It's impossible axiomatically to have two frame clues in a 45 total, because these three cells would be not reached, and we know they must be reached because we know the whole column adds up to 45. So now if this was 689, so if this was a frame clue, that's quite cool. If this is a frame clue, this would have to be 6, 8 and 9 because of the 23 total. But then we know that this 22 clue would have to extend right up to the boundary. So this square would have to be a 6. And it can't be if we make this 6, 8 and 9. So this clue at the top is an X sums clue. And the same is true of this direction. So this is an X sums clue as well. We just don't quite know how far it goes. But we know it can't be 3 cells long, because if it's 3 cells long, we get to the same position, that we get the problem with the 6 being necessary here. So this square must be, well, it must be a 4, 5 or a 6, because it can't be a 7, because then these two clues would have to sum up to 22, and that's not possible. So this is 4, 5 or 6, and that works in both directions. Let's pick a number here. If this is 5, what does that do? Well, actually, that's interesting, because if this is 5, we know that we'd have to have 4 in both of those positions. This can't be 4. I don't think this can be 4, because no, it can't be. If this is a 4, we have to decide what clue this 21 is. If it's a frame clue, these two squares would be 8 and 9. But that's not possible, because now this 24 clue is broken, because it can't be an X sums clue, because we can't have sort of 8 digits summing to 24. So this clue would have to be a frame clue, but it can't be, because we can't put 7, 8 and 9 into those 3 squares and at the same time have an 8, 9 in this square. So this is not a frame clue. But if it's not a frame clue, it's an X sums clue, and it would go to here. But we know that one of these two squares is a 2, separating this clue from this clue. But that can't be the case. If this is 4 cells long, we can't put a 2 here. We've already looked at that. So this is not right. This does not work. So I can delete. This is not 5. I wonder if we'll get the same thing if we try 4 there. Let's try 4, because if we get 4, then we know this clue and this clue have to be 5. Now this might work this time. But this 21 clue still can't be a frame clue, because these two clues would be 7 and 9, and we get the same problem as before with the 24 clue. We can't make this 7, 8, 9 now. Yeah, that just doesn't work. So this would have to come to here. This would have to be a 2. And this would have to be a normal clue adding to 22 without using 5. So this would have to be 6, 7. Oh no, hang on, look, there's symmetry. Yes, this is not possible. Look, because everything that's going on in this column and leading into this row is also happening in this column, sorry, this row leading into this column, look. So if this is a 5, we get the same problem with this 24 that we have with that 24. So this has to come this far. Both of these clues extend that far. And now we have to put a 1 here. We have to put a 2 here. This has to be 6, 8, 9. But this has to include a 6, a 7 and a 9 as well. And there's no way we can put 4. Well, there's only 4 different digits there for 5 different cells. That is not ever going to work. So there we go. We have finally, I think, deduced a number. Let me go back to here. This cannot be 4. This is a 6. And this is an X sums clue in both directions. So it goes like that. Now this clue has to add up to 22 without using 6. So in both directions, this is 5, 8, 9. And can we go further than that? I'm sure we can. Just have to work out how. So the 24 clue here now can't be a frame clue. So it cannot include an 8 nor a 9. That's a 5. Oh, we haven't got the same thing going on there because it's that clue I need to worry about. Well, that clue, this clue obviously has to be an X sums clue as well. We just don't know how long it is yet. So this is a 5-digit clue. It's going to go to there, and therefore, and we know the 1 is separating this 24 clue from this 20 clue, so that's going to be a 1. This 20 clue now is going to be a frame clue, and this square can't be a 2, therefore. Can't include a 2, otherwise we'd have these 2 cells adding to 18. So there's a 2 in one of those squares. There must be a 2 up there now. Neither of these squares can be a 5. Now can we use this one though? Because yes, we can. Yes, we can. This can't be a frame clue either, because I can't put 6, 8 and 9 into these 3 squares and 5, 8 and 9 into those 3 squares. Again, that's 4 numbers for 5 different squares. So this must be a 5. These 2 aren't 5s. This clue comes to there. Oh, this is beautiful. It's totally symmetrical, isn't it? It's absolutely gorgeous. So that's a 2. These 3 squares add up to 20, and these 3 squares add up to 20. This 23 clue now at the bottom, because there's an 8 or a 9 in this square, this can't be 6, 8 and 9. So this clue is longer than 3 squares, so and it can't be 4 because that would not allow us to place a 1 in the correct position. So it must be 5. That's the only possibility. This is a 5. That comes to there. This is a 1. This is just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And now we get the same thing here. Look, this 22 clue now can't be a frame clue, because if it is, it has to be 5, 8, 9. That's going to clash there. So this clue comes to there. That means the 2 must separate. This is a 2. And these 3 squares have got to add up to... these 3 squares have got to add up to 21 now. So if this is a 9, we'd have to go 9, 4, 8. Actually, that's... Oh, no, that doesn't work. We've got an 8 already here. If this is 9, we can't use 5, 7. We can't use 3, 9 for these 2 squares. That just doesn't work. This has to be an 8. This is a 9. The only way of getting to 21 now in 3 cells without using 9 is with a 6 and a 7. This obvious, this has to be an X sums clue, and it can't be 7 cells large. Look, this is a 21 clue at the top, so this is a 6. This is a 7. This comes up to there. There must be a 1 in one of these 2 squares. Now that locks a 1 in this bottom right box. So 1 in one of those 2 squares. These squares have got to be 3, 4, and 9. This can never be a 3 because the 22 clue will break. And it could be a 4, couldn't it? It could be a 4. I was about to say it couldn't be a 4, but it can be a 4. This one... so if this was 3, this would be 3, 8, 9. It feels like it's going to limit this 20 clue. Oh, hang on, we've got the same thing here and here, haven't we? Yeah, we've got the identical logic. I can't put a 9 in here. If this is a 9, I need these 2 squares to add to 12 without using 5, 7 or 3, 9. So I have to do 4 and 8, and that breaks with the 8 I'd have to put there. So this is an 8, this is a 9. These 2 squares are 6 and 7. There's a 2 in one of those 2 squares. That 2 sees that 2, which forces this to be a 2. These 3 squares are now 3, 4, and 9. Exactly the same as these 3 squares. What a puzzle this is. How on earth do you set this puzzle? Oh, now, if we look at this 20 clue, it must include a 9, because whether I put 3 or 4 or 9 in there, there's always a 9 in the sum. Now, we've got exactly the same logic here with this 20 clue, so I need there to be a 9 in this sum and a 9 in this sum. Well, the only way that can be true is if that square's a 9. There must be a 9 in both. So this square is now either... this square is a 7 or an 8. This square is a 7 or an 8, so I can place a 6. Now, that gives me a 6 here, a 6 here. Phone's buzzing at me. What? Back to that. Now, which clues have we haven't used this clue yet. We know this must be a 6 because it can't be a 7. Because we know that this is an X sums clue because it can't be 7, 8, 9. So this is a 6. This is a 7. This comes up to here. Right. It's so amazing that you've got sort of 5, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 9, 8, 7, 6. You've got the pencil mark 1s and 2s. You've got the pencil mark 6s. Presumably I can eliminate a 3 from this square, can I? No, I can't actually. That's in... Oh yes, I can. I can because I can't put a 9 in the column in either of these 2 positions. So this can never be a 3. Exactly the same as here. But here it was easier to eliminate because of the 22 total. So which clues have I not used properly yet? This 21 clue. I've got to make this 21 without using 6, and I've got to make this 21 without using 6. So if I don't use 6, I must use 9, because the only way of making 21 in 3 cells without using a 9 is to use 8, 7 and 6, and I'm not allowed to use a 6, so I must be able to use a 9 in both sums, which means this is a 9. It means there's a 9 in one of those squares, and by symmetry a 9 in one of those squares. So this is, so these two squares have to add up, these two cell sums both have to add up to 12, so they're either going to be 5 and 7 or 4 and 8. You can see in both cases the 8 is in one of those squares, and so is the 5. So this is a 5-8 pair. These two squares should be a 4-7 pair. These 3 squares are 1, 2 and 3. Oh, now hang on, because I've not put a 1, 2 or a 3 in this column yet. Now right at the start I was wondering about, yeah, there's now, because I've managed to eliminate some options, there's only 2 more squares that 1, 2 and 3 could go into, because I can't ever put a 1, 2 or a 3 here, so this square has to be a 4 or a 7. This square definitely can't be a 1 or a 2, but it could perhaps be a 3. So I think that's 3, 4 or 7 into this one. This 1 sees that 1, this 2 sees that 2. Which of these sums have I not used yet then? I've not used the middle row or the middle column. So let's look at this again. So this, so there's immediate deduction we can make on the middle row, because we know that we need to put 4 sort of outside the sum. We've got 20 plus 21, that's 41, so there's 4 left to account for. Now one of the things we wondered about is whether we had to put a 4 on its own in one of these positions. Well, that's not going to work, because wherever I put the 4, one of these clues, at least one of these clues, actually, well, at least one of these clues has to then be an X sums clue. But look at the options. If one of these clues is an X sums clue, it has to be a 4, because it can't be a 9 or a 7, because that's going to impinge on that's going to take it all the way across the grid, where it's going to clash, and these two therefore should be adding up to more than 45. So this central section contains a 1 and a 3. This one can't be a 1. So the 1 is in one of these 2 squares. So if we do the same thing with column 5, we need, well, if there's a 3 on its own in the middle, how would that work? How would that work? One of these clues, for example, if this was a 3, this would have to be a 6, and it can't be. If this was a 3, both of these would have to be 4, which is impossible. And if this is 3, no, did I say this had to be a 6? It can't be a 5. It would have to be a 5, but it still can't be a 5. I was just thinking about it from the other direction. If this is a 3, this would have to be a 5, and it can't be. So there is no 3 in the middle of this column. So this column contains a 1 and a 2 in the middle. Now that means there's a 1 in one of those 3 squares and a 1 in one of those 3 squares. Well, therefore that one is a 1. And there must be a 2 in, now there's a 2 in one of these 2 squares. Well, it can't be this one. So this is a 2. Oh, my phone's ringing. I better just get this. Sorry, phone call there. I had to stop. Now, what have I just done? I think I got this 2. Now that means one of these 2 is 2. And it means that in terms of which of these is the X sums clue now, it must be this one. So this has to be a 4, therefore, to take it up to there. 4. That means this is a 3. Oh, now we're getting somewhere, because now that's a 4. This is a 9. This can't be 9 now, and now it's going to be a case of not losing track of all this extra information we're suddenly getting, because now we can do this has got to be a 7, this has got to be an 8, this has got to be a 9. 7 here means there's a 7 in one of those 2 squares, look. So this becomes a 6-7 pair, and this must be, what's that going to be, 1 and 4? This must be 2 and 3. These squares have got to be 4, 5 and 8. 4, 5 and 8. And, oh, now if this is a 9, this must be a normal frame clue. So this can't be an 8 anymore. And the only way of making these 2, there's 2 ways of making that add up to 11. But, more importantly, therefore, this clue must be an X sums clue, and therefore must be a 4. Which means this is a 7. That's going to finish this off as well. Sam, you know, I say this occasionally on the channel, but sometimes you realise you're in the presence of just, you know, a mind you will never fully understand because it is so brilliant, and you are being coached on a journey that sort of says, look, this is how you should be thinking. If you were as clever as me, this is what you could do. Unfortunately, I'm not. Now, this is 4-1 now. This must be 2-3. Now, what do we need in there then? We still need an 8, so that must be a 6-8 pair. This is a 4, so it's going to come out to there. Now, that means this can't be the 3. This is the 3. This isn't a 1. Let's tidy up some of the pencil marking. We've got 1, 2, 3. Yes, we have got a 1, 2, 3 triple in column 2, so this must be the 2. Therefore, this is a 2 and this is a 3. And those 2 squares have got to be 5 and 7. This 2 fixes the 3 here, that fixes the 1, that fixes a 2 there. That fixes the 2 and the 3 over here. Oh, it's just jaw-dropping, frankly. Jaw-dropping. Falls into one of those squares. These squares need an 8 and a 6 by the looks of it. So let's put those in. 6, 8, and 9. 9 here means that's not a 9. 20, 11, 4, 5. Okay, now this can't be a 4 at the top or a 3, so this must be a 7. How do we get these to add up to 20 therefore? These have to add up to 13 without using 6, 7 or 4, 9. So this has to be 5 and 8. And you can see we can resolve the order there. This 8 fixes the 6, 8 at the bottom. Plonks an 8 in one of those 2 squares. These 2 squares, well, we can place the 3. Still need a 9, so that's going to be a 9. That fixes that one as a 9. These 2 squares are 1 and 2. We can do that one as well. This square we must be able to fill in. And those two squares have got to be 3 and 4, which again we can fill in. Must be a 4 in one of these two squares. These two squares are 5 and 7, which we haven't yet finished off. Right, so we must be nearly... Ah, yeah, let's use this 21 clue now. So we've already got 6, so these have to add up to 15. So this can't be a 6, otherwise this would be a 9. This has to be 8, this is 6, this is 7. This 7 here fixes the 7 and the 6. That allows us to fill in the 20 clue, look. 4, 8 into these squares. This 7 fixes the 7, 5 on the other side. 5's into one of those two positions. And the other number we've not catered for is a 6. Now the 6, you can see from these 6s, is going to have to go there, and I suspect that is the last thing that we're going to need to do. Everything else is now going to flow. I'm really hopeful. There we go. Yes. What a puzzle, Sam. What a puzzle. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm sorry it's taken me a while, 36 minutes, which is yeah, one of our longer videos, but I tell you what, you won't do a better puzzle this month than that one. Beautiful. Come back next time. I'm cracking the cryptic.